Welcome everyone to this webinar and symposium on, we call it Transcending HIV. This is a new approach and an ancient technique to deliver positive change to the HIV community. It's my great pleasure to have you here today, both here in the room as well as webcasts from around the country and beyond. I believe we have over 500 people who are tuning in via webinar from across the country. And that kind of response is very, very fulfilling and rewarding to me. This is a program that is dear to my heart that I started just a couple years ago, and we're going to hear a lot of great perspectives today. So just a quick overview of the agenda. I'm going to be introducing the Executive Director of the David Lynch Foundation. Then we'll hear from Neil Giuliano, who's the CEO of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, who has been our partner in this project. We'll hear from Dr. Sumedha Chhatre, who is really the pioneer of research on Transcendental Meditation and the effects on living with HIV. We'll also hear from Jeffrey Leiphart, who is with the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, and he'll be speaking about how the program has been implemented there and some of the results. We'll also have an opportunity to hear from a couple of the staff who have learned the program and the benefits and effect on their lives. So without further ado, I would like to introduce a very near and dear person to me, the Executive Director of the David Lynch Foundation, Robert Roth. I've known him for 58 years. He's a very good person, and he'll take it from here. Thank you.
That's my baby brother, Tom. It's absolutely wonderful to be here. It's very inspiring on two levels. First and foremost, most importantly, to be able to announce the results of this amazing collaboration between the David Lynch Foundation and the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. And also the second reason is I was in San Francisco, my hometown, when the San Francisco Giants won the World Series last night. Very satisfying. That was a clap for San Franciscans. Who would have thunk? You know, Transcendental Meditation was first introduced over 55 years ago by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who was a physicist, trained as a physicist, who then became a great meditation teacher. And when he came to the United States in 1959, his first stop was at UCLA Medical School and Stanford and Harvard Medical School, saying, "I've got a tool, a technique that can improve health. You should study it." And they didn't take it seriously. And then a decade later, the research began, and now there's over 340 published scientific research studies in refereed journals. The Department of Defense just gave us $2.4 million to study the effects of this technique on post-traumatic stress disorder. The National Institutes of Health have given almost $30 million to study the effects of this transcendental meditation technique on stress and heart disease. The American Heart Association, the American Medical Association have all published research. And I think the interest in something as simple and ancient and profound as meditation, specifically transcendental meditation, is for three reasons. One is a perfect storm. The problem of stress in all of our lives, everybody's lives, is number one, worse for us, and number two, science is understanding more specifically the devastating effect that it has on health and quality of life. Two, conventional approaches for addressing the problem of stress, whether it's strictly medication or talk therapy, can have their value, but you can't prevent traumatic stress through drugs, and you can't treat or cure traumatic stress or toxic stress through drugs. So science was forced to look elsewhere, and what they found was meditation in general, and specifically the technique we're going to be looking at today, a simple, natural, effortless tool for really accessing a mechanism that every human being has to take profound rest at will, deeper than sleep, heal the body, repair the damage in the brain, and really enable a person to live a fuller, more complete life. And in the case of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, to be able to be a great support for all the wonderful programs they're doing to empower people who are living with AIDS. I want to take 5 minutes and show you a short video about the work that the foundation has been doing, and after that, we're just going to plow right ahead to talk about the work, the new work we're doing with people living with AIDS. So if we could see that video.
I looked inside. I was hollow in the happiness department. And I said, I gotta get that. And so I started a Transcendental Meditation.
A year ago this month, I was suicidal. I felt so low that I wanted to just not be here.
I got pregnant at 13.
My mom, she got deported 2 years ago. Sometimes I cry because it's just too much tension.
We were attacked at this place called Buddha. The first night, I killed 14 people.
The number of women and girls who are raped and tortured and killed in war-torn areas around the globe is literally beyond comprehension.
My in-laws turned against me. They tortured me, almost killed me.
I always thought I sort of had a low-grade depression here, but it really was. Ever since probably 10 years old, I just really been miserable with being myself.
I was just so frustrated, full of misguided anger. I didn't know where to direct it to.
I lost 4 members of my family. Diabetes. I don't want that to happen to my people.
Sorrow, anxiety, traumatic stress, depression, hate, anger, rage, fear start to lift away. Life just gets better and better and better.
But when it's calm and still, even what struggle becomes beauty.
I used to say, I'm gonna get my grades up, I'm gonna do better. But yeah, it was just what I said. It never happened until I started meditating.
I think every barrio, ghetto school in America has to have the fundamental right of having an opportunity to do this type of thing.
Stay regular in your meditation. Don't let anybody take it away, and you will unfold your full potential.
The kids love it. The kids in the West Bank love it. Kids in Brazil love it. I think this is what people need. They don't need high-minded talk so much as results.
Speaking as a scientist, the amazing thing about Transcendental Meditation is the very well-established research showing that the technique impacts things that we didn't think were changeable.
Since I started TM, my sugar's been where it should be. So I'm sold on TM.
The initial research of the effects of Transcendental Meditation in treating PTSD offers so much hope, better than many things being tried at far less a cost.
Transcendental Meditation saved my life. Today, I can say I am a meditator.
I'm meditating 37 years.
It is the only time I have that stillness long enough that I open my eyes and I'm sad that it's 20 minutes later.
If you take out time and just meditate and just let everything go, free your mind, everything will come together.
Just this last month, I felt so much energy. It's been amazing.
All that feeling of heaviness, I could feel it melt away. It was absolutely transformational.
People tell me, you look very calm, you look very relaxed. And there's not a whole lot of craziness. I'm just sitting there calm. And it's surprising even to me.
I had a lot of problems in my life. And Tim came into my life and gave me like this open door to something that I never knew it would be.
Those days I used to cry too much. But now even the tears are holding. I'm great.
It comes back to the core of who you are as a person and what you're made of, and you have to give yourself a chance.
Real change for the good truly begins within.
So before we continue, let me just take a moment and define terms. The word meditation today is generic. It used to be thought for a very long time that all meditations were the same, that it didn't really matter what you were doing as long as you had your eyes closed and you were sitting quietly. And research has pointed out that actually it does matter. Every different experience changes the brain in a different way, and there are three basic legitimate types of meditation. One they call techniques involving focused attention. Some of you may practice that yourself. That involves concentration or control of the mind, trying to clear the mind of thoughts. And that has a very specific impact on the way the brain functions. It increases gamma brain waves, which are indicating of concentration or control of the mind. The second is open monitoring, which is mindfulness forms of meditation. And then the third is transcendental meditation, which is self-transcending. And that creates spreading of alpha, coherent alpha waves. And basically, what happens with this technique, it's more of a physiological response. If you use the example of an ocean and you have waves on the surface of the ocean, at the depth of the ocean, silence. And the mind is similar. Surface of our mind is the active thinking mind. I call it the gotta mind. All the things we have to do. And certain techniques of meditation try and stop the active thinking mind, try and clear the mind of thoughts. In transcendental meditation, there's no concentration or control of the mind. It's an effortless, very joyous practice of just allowing the excited, active mind to settle down, experience what they call a source of thought deep within every one of us, a level of the mind that's already calm, already settled and wide awake. And that creates a galaxy, a constellation of health transformations. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it back over to Tom Roth. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bobby. So when the mind settles down through this technique, then correspondingly, because of this mind-body connection, the body settles down. And we attain a very deep, profound state of rest. And it's that rest that eliminates stress. And that's really the fundamental basis for why we can have this conversation about the effect of transcendental meditation on people living with HIV, because it brings balance to the nervous system. Balance to the nervous system means relieving stress. It means bringing back the immune response, which of course is so extremely important to people living with HIV. So on that note, I want to bring it from the global to the local and tell you a little bit about the program that we've developed with the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. It's a pilot program that I think we're now ready to expand nationally. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you a man who has a bio that's a lot longer than our time here, because he's really been very active and involved as a leader both in the LGBT community and the HIV community. Neil Giuliano was appointed CEO of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation in December 2010, bringing over 3 decades of executive leadership experience to the foundation. Established in 1982, the San Francisco AIDS Foundation is one of the oldest and largest AIDS organizations in the world. Through education, advocacy, and direct services for prevention and care, every day the foundation confronts HIV in communities most vulnerable to the disease. Before joining the foundation, Giuliano served as president of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, GLAAD, and executive producer of the GLAAD Media Awards. In 1994, Neil became the youngest person ever elected mayor of Tempe, Arizona, and held a post he held for a decade. For 6 of those years, Tempe, population 175,000, was the largest city in America with an openly gay mayor. Giuliano received a bachelor's degree in communication and a master's in higher education from Arizona State University, where he served as student body president in the early 80s. He's also completed the Harvard Kennedy School of Government Advanced Program for State and Local Officials. And again, I could go on and on. This man we're very pleased and very honored to have Neil with us. So please welcome Neil Giuliano.
Thank you very much. Pleased to be here today. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Robert. And thanks to the David Lynch Foundation. As was mentioned earlier, the San Francisco AIDS Foundation is now over 30 years old. Started in the early days of the epidemic here in San Francisco, first as the Kaposi Sarcoma Foundation, and then as the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. And literally, the San Francisco model of care, which is what a combination of the various programs in the community became known as, that model of care has been replicated around the world. A combination of programs and services and interventions and treatments, all to help us get to that day when HIV/AIDS is no more. We're not quite at that day, but we've made incredible progress. When you think of the interventions, the medical, biomedical, social, psychosocial, all the different interventions that have taken place have brought us to a day when we can actually see in San Francisco now that day when a new HIV infection is rare. We're undertaking a very conscious move away from the old model of care to a new model of care, away from dealing with HIV/AIDS in a sickness and disease model to a model of health and wellness. And as we do that, there's one thing that we know, and that is there will be no one thing that will get us to that day when a new infection is incredibly rare. So as we move toward a focus on health and wellness for our clients and for our work and follow all of the work that we do within the community, we look for significant partnerships. We look for partnerships that can improve the lives of our clients, number one, and our staff who are taking care of our clients as well. And the partnership that we have had with the David Lynch Foundation to offer Transcendental Meditation over the last couple of years has truly been significant. And you're going to hear from individuals who've been personally involved in that in a little bit throughout the program. But what I want you to know today is how grateful we are for the David Lynch Foundation and for Tom to bring us this idea in the very beginning a couple of years ago, because we know the lives that have been changed and the improvement that has come from all of the folks who have been involved with the program. Together, we will get to that day when a new HIV infection is incredibly rare in San Francisco. We actually believe that while it was in San Francisco, in the Castro neighborhood and on Castro Street, where for the first time HIV reached epidemic proportions, we also believe it will be in San Francisco, in the Castro neighborhood, with our new focus on health and wellness in the new center that we're creating on Castro Street, where we will reach the day when we have ended the transmission of HIV. We will do that in partnership with many organizations, hopefully including the David Lynch Foundation. So thank you very much for having me here today.
So to continue the program, I wanted to sort of give you a sense of how this all got started. And this may be a good template for other organizations across the country, collaborations between David Lynch and Transcendental Meditation with AIDS service agencies across the country and beyond. So what I want to do is, first of all, tell you about our hashtag. If you're tweeting, please use TranscendHIV. But I want to talk to you a little bit about how this began. And it began really with an idea. The idea really was, how do I give back to the community? I was very fortunate, thanks in great part to my brother Bob, to learn Transcendental Meditation when I was a teenager. And having this technology as a young person was the beginning of what I consider a very fulfilling and fortunate life. I've had this technology through growing up, through starting my business, which is called Community Marketing and Insights. We've grown to become the most recognized leader in LGBT market research and communications, with a really great roster of clients and a great team. That's been very fulfilling. I also have a very fulfilled family life. That's me with my partner, Scott, and our four-legged daughter, Leela. So the reason I'm telling you this is because with the technology of TM and how it's improved my life, the constant thought behind my consciousness is, how do I give back? How do I recognize and contribute back to the society that's given me so much? So the thought was, everybody's living with stress, right? Everybody can benefit from the Transcendental Meditation technique. Certainly I know that as a longtime teacher of the technique through volunteer projects around the world, and certainly teaching here in the United States, and my activity at the middle schools here in San Francisco. Everybody can benefit from this. It's fantastic, simple, effortless. Anybody can do it. So the thought turned to my community. How do we raise our community to a new level? So people living with HIV, beyond the normal stress you can experience yourself, the normal stress that we face as humans in today's society, people living with HIV also face the trauma of diagnosis, okay? So being told you have this lifelong disease that you're gonna have to deal with forever. The trauma of that impact. They also face the psychological challenges of acceptance. There's an issue of social stigma around having HIV. They also face the physical challenges of living with the virus, living with a compromised immune system. Day to day, having that compromised immune system is something that people living with HIV are facing. The physical challenges of the drugs that have to be taken in order to keep the virus in check is also something that people living with HIV face that the rest of us don't. So the thinking was simple. How do we bring something so important to this community that could be so effective to this community? How do we get it there? And the thought turned to the David Lynch Foundation. And I've always observed and admired the activity of the David Lynch Foundation throughout the country, through all the different communities that the foundation has worked. The HIV community is an often overlooked and often compromised community. So the goal was, how do we get this community to get the benefits of the Transcendental Meditation technique? The David Lynch Foundation brings TM to those who would otherwise not be able to access it. So that is the program. The idea was, with the scientific research that's been done on the TM technique over the past 40 years, with the volume of studies that have been done on hypertension and blood pressure and immunology and just overall health, how could that be applied? I felt that there was an obvious application. So I turned to the David Lynch Foundation, and luckily I have a good connection there, and brought the idea to them and got 100% support immediately. No question, let's do this. So the next thought was, okay, how do we make it local? And so I met with a board member of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, a good friend of mine, and we had coffee, and I said, this is something I want to do. How can I do it? And he introduced me to Jeff Leiphart at the AIDS Foundation, had a meeting with Jeff. Jeff, fortunately, having been a long-term meditator himself, learned Transcendental Meditation in 1972, said, yes, let's do this. It was just open door after open door. Everybody got what this is going to do. And so partnering with the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, we were able to accomplish quite a lot over the past couple years. First of all, we've taught over 150 clients and staff. The first step after that meeting with Jeff was, let's have a meeting with the overall staff. So I presented TM to the staff and said, if you have any clients who might be interested in this, might benefit from it, please refer them. So we started teaching the clients. But then the staff said, what about us? Which is obvious, right? Because they're living in a very stressful situation. Not only just the work, but the involvement of people living with HIV, the challenges that come with that. So the staff started to learn. And the staff are starting to get great benefits. We're going to hear from a couple of those. So first of all, we started teaching, and then of course there was a need for follow-up. So every week we've had group meditations. It's kind of a drop-in program. Anybody who's learned the technique can then come and meditate together, and that reinforces their practice. It's great for compliance and follow-up. We've also had a couple weekend retreats and full-day retreats where the experience is deepened, and we've also started pioneering research, which I'm not going to go into because the idea is that our scientists will speak about that. But the group meditations, I should say, especially to those around the country who are working with the TM centers and thinking about bringing this to AIDS organizations across the country, I've taught a lot of different people in a lot of different places, and it's been very rewarding work. Teaching at the San Francisco AIDS Foundation is magnitudes more fulfilling to me than any work I've done in this organization, because it is so meaningful. It's touched so many people and literally transformed them in ways that I couldn't even have imagined. So these group meditations are literally the best meditations I have every week. Just getting to sit with the group and meditate has been phenomenal. Obviously, the partnership is with the David Lynch Foundation. The experiences started to come in, all anecdotal, all this is changing me in this way, it's changing me in this way. It's been phenomenal. So we created a book, which hopefully all of you have gotten, and those of you who are viewing from home, you can download. This book is filled with experiences of those who are living with HIV and have begun the Transcendental Meditation technique, and the results have been beautiful. And so we have client endorsements and also from the staff. And I want to let you know that David Lynch is also very personally engaged in this. I went to an event in Los Angeles, and I was walking down some stairs, and David was walking up the stairs. He stopped me and he said, "Tom, how's it going at the AIDS Foundation?" Out of the blue. And I was really, really touched by that, because he cares so deeply about this particular program. And he created this little sign for us. May everyone be happy. May everyone be free of disease. May auspiciousness be seen everywhere. May suffering belong to no one. Peace. This is a very ancient phrase from ancient texts, but he uses it as basically his message to the AIDS community, and I think it's beautiful. I'm not going to go there yet. I want to show a video of the program. You'll get to hear from a couple of the clients, and then I'll introduce our scientists. Thank you.
There's very few things as stressful as saying, you now have a life-threatening disease and probably it's going to kill you.
I was in rehab when I found out I was HIV positive. I had both Hep C and HIV. And I thought my world was going to crumble.
I found out February 14th, 1997, that I was HIV positive. I was panicked. I didn't know which way to go. I was a benefits analyst for many, many years, and I worked at several health plans. I was in my place for 20 years. My landlady died. And then in a really aggressive judicial process, I found myself locked out of my place. I ended up out on the street after a few months because I exhausted my friends' couches.
I came here in 1968. I was 11 years old from El Salvador. There was very few immigrants, so there was no such thing as English as second language class, so it forced me to learn English. I wanted to find out about the SAT tests. I asked my high school counselor, and she said, "Oh, don't worry about it. You know, you being here is a fluke." That's what she told me. You know, I'm a Latina. You know, it's the early 70s. When I took the SAT test, I scored 1,400, which put me in the top 1 percentile of the nation. You could be really bright and still do stupid things. My husband sold drugs. He used drugs too, and then I used drugs, and after he died, I started really using more drugs, and which is how I got HIV infected.
When someone has a life-threatening illness, it triggers the fight or flight response, and the fight or flight response lowers immunity. And so there's a vicious circle that happens.
When I found out that my T cells were around 300 and dropping, and there was not a lot that was being done to address it, I started to panic.
It was tough living day to day with all the stress and not knowing what to do because we're not taught coping skills.
Stress level goes up, which causes immune system to go down. So anything that the person can do that interrupts that and provides a sense of relaxation and safety will be immune enhancing. TM is a great example of that.
I came to Transcendental Meditation through a flyer that the San Francisco AIDS Foundation posted. I felt the serenity, the peace that I hadn't had before. The stress was slowly leaving me. And the more I did it, the less stress I felt.
When I started meditating, my body began to fight back. I'm currently over 1,200 T cells, and I feel great.
3 months into me meditating consistently twice a day, I went from having like 215 T cells to 358, which is like 125 surge in like 3 months' time, which I had not had ever in my time living with HIV. And the only thing that had changed in my life was the fact that I was meditating. And since I've been meditating, it's been consistently going up.
When someone feels empowered, it also helps immune function. And so to have a technique in your own toolkit, like TM, that you can implement on your own is what we call self-empowering, and that's a huge piece.
Who would have thought 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the afternoon was going to have such a profound effect of benefit in my life, you know? I used to walk with a cane. And since I started meditating, I no longer use a cane. I like walking, you know, and I walk fast. I don't, you know, I'm, you know, former New Yorker, man. You know, New York, if you stroll, you get trampled. I'm actually going to have a quinceañera for my HIV. I'm going to celebrate 15 years of being HIV positive. You can have a full, very rich life, even though you're HIV positive. It's no longer the death sentence that it used to be.
I had some of my most stoic, always incredibly supportive mentors through the AIDS Foundation, and I wanted to emulate that for other people and be able to give back.
And I started trying to reach people and teach them about HIV. Hi, Michael. How you doing? We're great friends. We volunteer together.
In the name of Hep C prevention
and
HIV, definitely.
So with that email address, you all know how to find me. Please do. This is the beginning of a global collaboration, and I certainly look forward to working with any organizations around the country or beyond who are interested in implementing a program that is so simple to administer, so simple to practice, so enjoyable, so nourishing that anybody wants to do this. So at the end of the video, there was reference to the research. It's my great honor to introduce to you Dr. Sumedha Chhatre. Dr. Chhatre is literally the pioneer of research on transcendental meditation and HIV. As you know, there's been 350 scientific studies on the wide variety of benefits through mind and body on people practicing the transcendental meditation technique. This is the first time it's been applied in a research perspective to HIV. Dr. Chhatre is a research assistant professor with the HIV Prevention Research Division of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Pennsylvania. She has over 10 years of experience in health services research. The general focus of her research is the interaction of HIV and other chronic diseases such as cancer, substance use, and mental health and its effects on health and well-being. Her specific interests are patient-centered care, comparative effectiveness, patient-reported outcomes, health-related quality of life, satisfaction with care, quality of well-being, and unity. Health disparities, geographic, income, age, race, and gender-specific, burden of comorbid conditions, and the effects of stress on health outcomes, all in the broad context of HIV. She's the principal investigator and collaborating investigator on several federally and non-federally funded grants and has published extensively. She flew in last night, she's here for this morning, and has to fly out this afternoon. It's really such a pleasure and honor to have Dr. Sumedha Chhatri with us today.
Can you guys hear me? Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for this opportunity for me to come here and present our study. When we did this small study that's funded by the Center for AIDS Research at University of Pennsylvania, I never imagined that it would have such a broad meaning in the context of HIV research, and I'm real pleased for that. I would like to discuss a little bit about the study and put it in a broader context to let you know what it means to have this research show you that TM has worked in people who have HIV. Now, when Tom said it works, you may have thought at the back of your mind, well, maybe somebody who didn't practice TM still would have had improved cell counts. What's your evidence? So the research is really to provide you with evidence, and for me as a scientist to really see if this works. And for doing this, we conducted what in research is known as a randomized control study, which means you are basically creating a very level playing field. You are enrolling people who have similar kind of condition or disorder, and then you are applying the intervention to one group. And then if you see differences in outcomes, you can truly attribute those differences to the intervention that you are providing. And in our case, it's going to be the Transcendental Meditation. Before that, you all must have done Google searches and looked at what stress and health relationship is. There is a lot of research out there which talks about the negative impact of stress on health in general. And then there are specific researchers who talk about either physiological impacts of stress and how reducing that stress improves the health outcomes. So this is by no means an exhaustive list, but just a very small sample of what is out there in terms of association between stress and health in general. So moving on to our study. Oops, I went way too, okay. So this is the research design. It's a randomized controlled trial. It was done as a pilot study, which means we are studying something that wasn't studied before. So before going into a full-fledged large-scale study with hundreds of people, we really wanted to see if this would be even acceptable and something feasible in this population. And that is what a pilot or a phase 1 study is. So we randomized 22 participants. 11 went into the intervention group, which is a Transcendental Meditation, and 11 went into what we call a control group. Now, really, control groups are care as usual. They don't get any intervention of any sort. But in this case, we felt it just wasn't fair to have somebody enroll in the study and they say you may or may not get to do something. So we created what is called a healthy eating education program. And this program had another major benefit. In doing that, it controlled the time that Transcendental Meditation people were spending in meeting with the teacher and practicing. So the people who were in the control group and who had the healthy eating education also met with their instructor, also spent equal amount of time in the classroom talking about healthy education. So here we have, in essence, set up a very level playing field So we have everybody who had HIV, we had them randomly assigned, so we didn't decide ourselves who went to which group. It was literally a flip of coin. So this one comes to as close as being a lab experiment in real life. A research can't be more rigorous than this, than what we have done in this study. So we had a few inclusion criteria, as you can see up there. And the outcome variables were really the immunological markers, which are the biological markers, CD4 count and CD38 expression, which is a marker of immune activation in the body. The hormonal markers were cortisol and norepinephrine, and psychosocial and psychological outcomes were self-reported quality of life, depression, so on and so forth. So everybody went through this program for about 6 months. So at the baseline, we had these measures, and we moved on at the end of 6 months. Oops. I did something which is, oh, okay. At the end of 6 months, we measured these people again. We had them assessed. We had blood draws, we had self-reported surveys completed, and this probably is too small a font for you to look at. The information booklet that you got today has our published study with details on every aspect of the research that I'm talking about today. And as you will see, we had some improvements in the vitality, in self-reported functioning, in depression, and also the biological markers which were measured by blood draw and then measured assays were run in a lab, showed some decline in the Transcendental Meditation group. The conclusion is stress reduction intervention TM appears to be acceptable, feasible. It did show reduction in stress, perceived stress, depression, and improvements in health, self-reported quality of life. The most important outcome for me was the acceptability and feasibility and the ease at which we were able to recruit patients into this study. Mind you, the compensation for participant is nominal, so there is really no great monetary benefit offered, but the enthusiasm with which the community participated was overwhelming. And almost 1 year after the study ended, we still kept getting calls from the community wanting to enroll in the study, and we had to say, well, we will develop a waiting list, and when we get a larger study, we would be in touch with you. So that is a snapshot of the research. And again, as I said, this research really created a level playing field, controlled for everything that a person may experience day to day, and then showed that that group which did Transcendental Meditation had better outcomes. I would like to acknowledge our participants who were very enthusiastic, very determined. And before I forget, we are 100% retention in the Transcendental Meditation group. We did not have one single dropout over the 6-month period, which was enormous. And anybody who is involved in research know that 100% retention is really your dream of. It's very hard to achieve that one. We would like to thank Glenn Davis, who was our TM instructor, Julia Bohinski, who was our healthy eating instructor, and various community organizations which sent us their participants. And finally, again, thanks to Penn Center for AIDS Research for sponsoring this study. And thank you, Bob and Tom, for giving me the opportunity to be in this lovely San Francisco area. Thank you.
Anybody listening in from across the country or beyond, if you'd like a copy of the research studies, both at UPenn and San Francisco AIDS Foundation, just send me an email and I'll return it back with a link to download the PDF. So again, that's Tom at davidlynchfoundation.org. So that's not right. We're going to now hear a local perspective, and this is my opportunity to introduce someone who's become a great friend and certainly a major supporter. Literally, we wouldn't have this conversation if it weren't for Jeffrey Leiphart. Dr. Leiphart is the Senior Director for Programs and Services at the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. Dr. Leiphart has been licensed in California as a clinical psychologist since 1978 with an area of specialty in health and psychology, particularly program design and evaluation for people living with HIV, AIDS, and other chronic diseases. He's an expert in psychoneuroimmunology, PNI, and other areas of science known collectively as mind-body health. He's developed numerous successful programs, particularly the LIFE program, L-I-F-E, a nationally implemented program for teaching evidence-based mind-body health to people living with HIV/AIDS. So obviously we all speak the same language. Dr. Leiphart is a consultant to state health departments on the science of mind-body health and a frequent speaker at national and international conferences. It's really a pleasure to bring Dr. Leiphart to the stage.
Thank you, Tom, for taking the initiative to bring this wonderful project to the AIDS Foundation. Thank you, Robert. Thank you all for tuning in to hear how a project like this gets implemented in an AIDS service organization and a community-based organization. The research has been covered well. I want to speak from the point of view of an agency taking on a project. I have 5 minutes, I have 5 points. I'm going to try to do 1 minute per point. And the first one is the response of the program, of the Transcendental Meditation instruction from the point of view of the clients. I've been working in HIV/AIDS for a very long time. I think you heard that in the introduction. Been involved with many, many programs. Many programs have a positive response from a lot of clients. That's not unusual. What was unusual in this case with the TM project is that the clients, without exception, were not only positive about the experience and the outcomes in their lives, but they were enthusiastically so. I didn't come across one person who gave it a mild recommendation, and that was very unusual. And then in addition, as Tom mentioned, our staff participated in it, and this staff was enthusiastic. You know that in general, the way the modern world works is that we all live very busy, stressed lives. We do a lot, community-based organizations, staff are very busy. They all reported positive experiences with this, so I'm really pleased from that point of view. The second point is that implementing it at our agency was easy and problem-free. I've been at this for a long time. Ooh, I'm getting minute reminders, good. I've been at this for a long time. People who come from the outside and want to implement a project in an agency, it's often an iffy proposition. So in this case, it worked out very easily. Tom showed up. We talked with my boss at the time, who's since resigned. We decided it was a great idea. Tom made it almost effortless. He handled all of the logistics of it. From the point of view of running a program, it also had the advantage of there was very little demand on the staff that we operate with. Those staff are busy. People really did not have the time to carve out additional time to support their project. It was fine. Tom handled it all. I just knew there was a very good thing going on over there and had very few worries about it, and that was a big plus. Tip of the hat to the aging process. Yeah, what was easy is Tom came in, did the instruction, managed the logistics of the program, taught the meditation technique to both the clients and the staff. And a lot of it is the intervention, and this is relatively a rare thing, the intervention is self-delivered. So there did not need to be staff all the time when TM was being delivered because the person does it to themselves. It's a nice little benefit to this technique. I want to mention also evidence. It's a significant strength of TM as a form of meditation and relaxation in that it's both evidence-based and evidence-producing. It rests on solid science, and as it moves forward, it's producing its own science, and that really needs to continue. I wanted to make a comment that I think either Robert or Tom, or maybe both of you made, and that is regarding wellness. Neil also made this, is that for a long time, health has been focused on the paradigm, a biomedical paradigm, and that can be perhaps a little unfairly, but very succinctly summarized by disease is caused by a germ, and health is restored by a pill. And that's biomedicine in a very truncated way. And there's an emerging paradigm now that started maybe 20 years ago. It's gathering steam currently, and that is a biopsychosocial model. And that says yes to biomedicine, yes to pharma, yes to what medical care brings to the table, and healthcare is significantly improved if you add psychosocial and health behaviors into the mix. And this is something that TM does. It provides a health behavior that people living with HIV/AIDS, living with almost any chronic disease, or living with the chronic disease of living in a modern stressful world, but it challenges the paradigm, and that leads me to the last point, and that is about the David Lynch Foundation HIV initiative. I think it is really important that the research continues in this. Getting people interested in it to practice it, to implement it in their lives is not very difficult. I think you'll hear from some of the staff who are going to speak following me that after doing it for 2 or 3 days or a week, you're completely hooked because the benefits are obvious and significant. But because TM is paradigm challenging, it's not necessarily an easy sell, and it makes the research really important. And so one of the things I'm hoping that comes out of the collaboration that we've done at the AIDS Foundation with the small sample of clients and staff, I hope we can move on to a collaboration, for example, perhaps University of Pennsylvania, David Lynch Foundation, San Francisco AIDS Foundation. We could really put this on the map in terms of a wellness technique that delivers what it claims to deliver. And I have no idea whether I covered my notes or not, but I think I've arrived at the end point. How was that on time?
So now it's a great honor and privilege for me to introduce 2 clients and 2 staff who are just going to speak for a few moments about their own personal experience. A couple of them we've already seen on the video, so they're really stars across the country now. Let me first introduce Michael Rupe to say a few words about his experience. Michael?
Thank you, Tom. I'm just going to read a statement, and thank you. The impact of Transcendental Meditation has been profound in my life during extremely difficult and challenging times. With so many barriers to overcome, including rapidly declining health with environmental cofactors, finding a way through it felt impossible to overcome. I started practicing Transcendental Meditation under a bridge in a camp with other homeless people at night. Over time, it became clearer I would have to make some extraordinary efforts and incremental steps and begin to build myself out of where I was at, and I have. While there is still considerable steps to make on my journey, it was a privilege to be able to share with you some of the successes and note the improvement in my body and mind. For people living with HIV, the impact of Transcendental Meditation can be tremendous when the body is stressed in a given environment. Transcendental Meditation trains the mind to focus on relaxation, leaving the body to follow. Over time, the body begins to relax and separate from one's environment, and the relaxation stimulates the immune response to fight back. One needn't be homeless in order to see profound results from Transcendental Meditation, but it helps to be in tune with one's body. Transcendental Meditation has changed my life, and I am here today to advocate it for other HIV-positive people and people living with AIDS. Thank you.
Norma, would you like to join us? It's a great privilege also to bring up Norma Asukar, who you saw in the video. Asukar.
Hi, my last name is Azúcar, sugar. Isn't that sweet? To add to all this, TM is not only wonderful as a health benefit, but it also delays the aging process. So for vanity's sake, people who meditate, because it reduces stress, you don't show I'm 57 years old. And it definitely, it has had a profound health benefits in my life. But also I've noticed that, the wrinkles and the lines, they've diminished. So if that's another, selling point, man, that it, for beauty, for beauty's sake, it also, delays the aging process. So that's something to think about, another selling point. So I just, want to say how proud and thankful I am to the David Lynch Foundation to have brought Transcendental Meditation to the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. And I've been practicing for over a year. And as I said in the video, I used to walk with a cane. I no longer need it. All that stress just left me. I was in a really, really messed up point. My mother had just died. I mean, all this, I had just found out that my husband had a baby with another woman. I mean, all this crazy soap opera kind of stuff was going on in my life. And I started meditating, and the stress just slowly started leaving me. And, I'm back to being my old bubbly self. And, so I attribute this to Transcendental Meditation. So I'll have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Norma. She's wonderful, as we can see. Let me bring up a couple staff members. First would be Timothy Foster, LCSW. He's the clinical case manager for the Black Health Center of Excellence. Timothy, would you like to come to the stage?
Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I really want to thank Tom for this opportunity. So, like he was saying, I work for the San Francisco AIDS Foundation and Black Health Center of Excellence. And additionally, I work with the transgender community in a group that we're doing called Trans Life. And I love my job at the foundation. I love going there every single day. That being said, it is very stressful in the sense that you have a lot of responsibilities. You're responsible for people's lives. It's not your normal type of job, and so a lot of times you're responsible for things that you don't have any control over. A lot of times the resources are not as much as they need to be as far as with the client. So, and you're responsible for those things. And it can be very stressful. And so how I got turned on to TM is through Norma, who, as we all know, is very fabulous. And she was telling me about, all of the benefits that she was getting. And I found out that it was also available to staff. And I said, you know what? I'm going to try it out. I went there, got trained by Tom. My life changed in 3 days. It was completely like night and day. My stress level started to dissipate. And the thing is that the work is the same. The work still is demanding, and there are a lot of things that you need to do. However, the difference is the centeredness that TM provides. There's a centeredness that happens, and I'm able to do the work more effectively, which is something that I've never really experienced before. And so it's been a gift in my life that I can't thank you enough for. And I'm so thankful to be able to have this resource to give to my clients. So it's my goal at every client that I have, especially in the groups that I facilitate, even if it means hand-holding them to the next orientation for TM, I want to definitely advocate for my clients and help them to get benefits of this resource. And so thank you so much.
And finally, I want to bring up a great team member from the AIDS Foundation who has also been a great team member for the David Lynch Foundation's program at the AIDS Foundation. Larry Zapatka, MBA, MPA. Talk about a stressful job. He's the director of budgets for a large nonprofit. And I think he'll share with you some of the benefits that he's gained as well. Larry.
Good morning. Thank you, Tom. I'm happy to be here this morning. As the Director of Budget, again, it is very stressful. You know, every day we talk about doing more with less. We do more work, we have new projects, we have less staff and resources, less time to do things, and less time for ourselves. This all promotes a lot more stress. That's one thing we don't have less of, less stress. This culminates in physical and emotional attributes that affect us on a daily basis. As a person living with HIV, I'm all too well aware of this. This became really prevalent about 3 years ago when I got to the point where I had a hard time just functioning on a daily basis, coming to work, doing my work. I would stress on the hour bus ride into work every day. It was that bad. I had headaches every day, chest pains, body aches. My T cells were on a slow but ever-decreasing decline. My physician asked me to take a short break from work to reset myself. And I did. It was great. I got recharged. I came back to work, and in about 6 weeks, I was right back to where I was before. I had heard about the program that Tom was working on, and I was a little skeptical about it, but I figured I'll give it a try. What did I have to lose? I finished my training, and within 3 weeks, my headaches were gone. My fatigue was dissipating. I saw my doctor about a month later. He ran my T cells. I was up about 15%. We thought it was an anomaly. We figured we'll just recheck them later. My routine hasn't changed like most other people. I still deal with the same number of projects, same people, same issues. The only thing that's changed is that I made a conscious effort to carve out 20 minutes a day, twice a day, for myself to sit and meditate. Here I am 18 months later. I haven't had a headache. My T cells remain elevated, no pain, and I'm happy. TM is wonderful, but for people living with HIV, it's a gift. You know, for something that takes so little effort, you get so much return. It's truly the epitome of more for less. Thank you.
What can I say but wow, that makes it all worthwhile. So let's talk a little bit about future planning. Where do we go from here? We've heard the results. We've seen how this can impact the HIV community. We've seen how it can affect the staff who are working with the HIV community. We have to go further. So one step will be to expand the program to other, first of all, expand the program within the AIDS Foundation. So we have meetings today to talk about that, how we can expand it and better integrate it into all of the programming at the AIDS Foundation and certainly at the Center for Health and Wellness that will be on Castro Street. That's an exciting collaboration we're very psyched about. We want to implement the program in other HIV organizations. The AIDS Foundation is the pioneer. It's our flagship, you could say. But I think we've done enough to demonstrate the value of this program in other AIDS organizations across the country and beyond. And we have the technology. We want to expand the research, as was touched on by both Sumedha and by Jeffrey. We have enough research to move forward. During that process, we want to strengthen that research and expand it and test in different ways, just to demonstrate for those few straggler skeptics out there that this is something that is genuine and can work and it's easy to implement. Of course, we want to raise funds for sustainability of the program. We'll be working closely with the David Lynch Foundation on that. Of course, we want this to go on forever, and that needs the basis of funds. We need to train TM teachers who are specialists in working with the HIV community. And ultimately, the goal is to teach 10,000 people living with HIV over the next 3 years. It's a lofty goal.
But when it's calm and still, even what struggle becomes beauty.
I used to say, I'm gonna get my grades up, I'm gonna do better. But yeah, it was just what I said. It never happened until I started meditating.
I think every barrio, ghetto school in America has to have the fundamental right of having an opportunity to do this type of thing.
Stay regular in your meditation. Don't let anybody take it away, and you will unfold your full potential.
The kids love it. The kids in the West Bank love it. Kids in Brazil love it. I think this is what people need. They don't need high-minded talk so much as results.
Speaking as a scientist, the amazing thing about Transcendental Meditation is the very well-established research showing that the technique impacts things that we didn't think were changeable.
Since I started TM, my sugar's been where it should be. So I'm sold on TM.
The initial research on the effects of Transcendental Meditation in treating PTSD offers so much hope, better than many things being tried at far less a cost.
Transcendental Meditation saved my life. Today, I can say I am a meditator.
I'm meditating 37 years.
It is the only time I have that stillness long enough that I open my eyes and I'm sad that it's 20 minutes later.
If you take out time and just meditate and just let everything go, free your mind, everything will come together.
Just this last month, I felt so much energy. It's been amazing.
All that feeling of heaviness, I could feel it melt away. It was absolutely transformational.
People tell me, you look very calm, you look very relaxed. And there's not a whole lot of craziness. I'm just sitting there calm. And it's surprising even to me.
I had a lot of problems in my life. And Tim came into my life and gave me like this open door to something that I never knew it would be.
And show you a short video about the work that the foundation has been doing. And after that, we're just going to plow right ahead to talk about the new work we're doing with people living with AIDS. So if we could see that video.
I looked inside. I was hollow in the happiness department. And I said, I gotta get that. And so I started a Transcendental Meditation.
A year ago this month, I was suicidal. I felt so low that I wanted to just not be here.
I got pregnant at 13. My mom, she got deported 2 years ago. Sometimes I cry because it's just too much tension.
We were attacked at this place called Buddha. The first night, I killed 14 people.
The number of women and girls who are raped and tortured and killed in war-torn areas around the globe is literally beyond comprehension.
My in-laws turned against me. They tortured me, almost killed me.
I always thought I sort of had a low-grade depression here, but it really was. Ever since probably 10 years old, I've just really been miserable with being myself.
I was just so frustrated, full of misguided anger. I didn't know where to direct it to.
I lost 4 members of my family. Diabetes. I don't want that to happen to my people.
Sorrow, anxiety, traumatic stress, depression, hate, anger, rage, fear start to lift away. Life just gets better and better and better.
Who would have thunk? Transcendental Meditation was first introduced over 55 years ago by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who was a physicist, trained as a physicist, who then became a great meditation teacher. And when he came to the United States in 1959, his first stop was at UCLA Medical School and Stanford and Harvard Medical School, saying, I've got a tool, a technique that can improve health. You should study it. And they didn't take it seriously. And then a decade later, the research began, and now there's over 340 published scientific research studies in refereed journals. The Department of Defense just gave us $2.4 million to study the effects of this technique on post-traumatic stress disorder. The National Institutes of Health have given almost $30 million to study the effects of this transcendental meditation technique on stress and heart disease. The American Heart Association, the American Medical Association have all published research. And I think the interest in something as simple and ancient and profound as meditation, specifically transcendental meditation, is for three reasons. One is a perfect storm. The problem of stress in all of our lives, everybody's lives, is, number one, worse for us, and number two, science is understanding more specifically the devastating effect that it has on health and quality of life. Two, conventional approaches for addressing the problem of stress, whether it's strictly medication or talk therapy, can have their value, but you can't prevent traumatic stress through drugs, and you can't you can't treat or cure traumatic stress or toxic stress through drugs. So science was forced to look elsewhere, and what they found was meditation in general, and specifically the technique we're going to be looking at today, a simple, natural, effortless tool for really accessing a mechanism that every human being has to take profound rest at will, deeper than sleep, heal the body, repair the damage in the brain, and really enable a person to live a fuller, more complete life. And in the case of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, to be able to be a great support for all the wonderful programs they're doing to empower people who are living with AIDS. I want to take 5 minutes.
Those days I used to cry too much, but now even the tears are holding. Great.
It comes back to the core of who you are as a person and what you're made of, and you have to give yourself a chance.
Real change for the good truly begins within.
So before we continue, let me just take a moment and define terms. The word meditation today is generic. It used to be thought for a very long time that all meditations were the same, that it didn't really matter what you were doing as long as you had your eyes closed and you were sitting quietly. And research has pointed out that actually it does matter. Every different experience changes the brain in a different way, and there are three basic legitimate types of meditation. One they call techniques involving focused attention. Some of you may practice that yourself. That involves concentration or control of the mind, trying to clear the mind of thoughts. And that has a very specific impact on the way the brain functions. It increases gamma brain waves, which are indicating of concentration or control of the mind. The second is open monitoring, which is mindfulness forms of meditation. And then the third is transcendental meditation, which is self-transcending. And that creates spreading of alpha, coherent alpha waves. And basically, what happens with this technique, it's more of a physiological response. If you use the example of an ocean and you have waves on the surface of the ocean, at the depth of the ocean, silence. And the mind is similar. Surface of our mind is the active thinking mind. I call it the gotta mind. All the things we have to do. And certain techniques of meditation try and stop the active thinking mind, try and clear the mind of thoughts. In transcendental meditation, there's no concentration or control of the mind. It's an effortless, very joyous practice of just allowing the excited, active mind to settle down, experience what they call a source of thought deep within every one of us, a level of the mind that's already calm, already settled, and wide awake. And that creates a galaxy, a constellation of health, transformation.
Welcome, everyone, to this webinar and symposium on, we call it Transcending HIV. This is a new approach and an ancient technique to deliver positive change to the HIV community. It's my great pleasure to have you here today, both here in the room as well as webcasts from around the country and beyond. I believe we have over 500 people who are tuning in via webinar from across the country. And that kind of response is very, very fulfilling and rewarding to me. This is a program that is dear to my heart that I started just a couple years ago, and we're going to hear a lot of great perspectives today. So just a quick overview of the agenda. I'm going to be introducing the executive director of the David Lynch Foundation. Then we'll hear from Neil Giuliano, who's the CEO of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, who has been our partner in this project. We'll hear from Dr. Sumedha Chhatre, who is really the pioneer of research on transcendental meditation and the effects on living with HIV. We'll also hear from Jeffrey Leiphart, who is with the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, and he'll be speaking about how the program has been implemented there and some of the results. We'll also have an opportunity to hear from a couple of the staff who have learned the program and the benefits and effect on their lives. So without further ado, I would like to introduce a very near and dear person to me, the executive director of the David Lynch Foundation, Robert Roth. I've known him for 58 years. He's a very good person, and he'll take it from here. Thank you.
That's my baby brother, Tom. It's absolutely wonderful to be here. It's very inspiring on two levels. First and foremost, most importantly, to be able to announce the results of this amazing collaboration between the David Lynch Foundation and the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. And also the second reason is I was in San Francisco, my hometown, when the San Francisco Giants won the World Series last night. So very satisfying. That was a clap for San Franciscans.